2020? These are like the Olympics of committee meetings. We only have them once every 3 months or so.
We're streaming now. Did it use your first name?
It's not here.
Beth, do we have agendas?
They're under there.
Chair.
Keep going.
Under here?
Keep going.
Am I losing my mind? I could be.
Wait for that, you already lost it.
At minutes.
Yeah, that's the minutes.
Minutes and minutes.
Last MLD meeting.
I have it all here. Where did they go? Up here? Let's start with that. Start with these because I don't know where the cabinets are. They're all over, they're on desk.
In the stack, maybe, Beth, would we look?
Let's start with that maybe.
Perfect. Thanks, Ben. Do you want us to wait for you or start without it?
I don't do all the ones from the.
Yeah, it's okay.
They're not in
Everything's
this.
on.
Come to order. We're now starting the regular meeting of the Board of the Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department. It's January 30th, 2020, and it's 4:34 p.m. First, we'll start with a roll call. Director Barbell.
Here.
Director Kelly.
Here.
Director Gibbs. Director Gibbs is absent. Director DeDominicus.
Here.
Director McFarland is here. Director Moore is here. And Director Reed.
Present.
And Manager Tracy.
Here.
And CFO. Item number 1, minutes of the previous meeting. Resolved that the minutes of the meeting of the PMLD Board held on October 31st, 2019 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the Municipal Lighting Department office. Director Kelly. Director McFarland will second. Any discussion on the minutes from the October 31st, 2019 meeting?
Thank you.
Hearing no discussion, we'll go to roll call. Director Barbell.
Here.
I'm sorry. Is that
Yes, sorry.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director DeDominicus.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Reed.
Yes.
That motion is adopted. Item number 2, financial report presented by MLD Manager William Tracy.
Yeah, for 2019, we finished the year in the black, a little bit ahead of expenses. It was a good year. There's not really much to say on it, other than we came in the black. As a nonprofit, I'm supposed to break even, and I basically broke even, so that is good. What you have else in your package is you can see how much power that we bought on the next page, and the cost for all that. We have our budget if you want to go through it. And the last one, which is probably going to, last page, which a lot of you are interested in, is how much we paid for Rex and Zex, which was nearly $2 million additional expenses that the state levied against us for the last year.
And Bill, are we going to be paying OREX this year, or is that looking like more next year sort of project?
That looks like about a year down from now, though the state is proceeding with awarding contracts to build wind farms off the Hamptons and off Montauk Point.
Okay, but that probably won't come into effect until next year.
They're saying 2022 probably,
Okay.
and it may get overridden by a carbon tax instead.
And are you expecting our payments for Zex and Rex, this year to be around the same as it was last year?
It's probably gonna go up,
Do you have an estimate about how much?
probably 2%.
Okay, so,
What they do every year, come April, they do a reconciliation to see if they collected enough money. If they collected enough money, then they won't change anything. If they didn't collect enough money, then they will increase the amount that they need to collect and send us a bill for the previous year.
okay,
And you all know what the Rex and Zex are all about.
yeah. Well, maybe should, does Director DeDominicis or Director
Yeah.
Bargle have a question?
Okay, the ZECs are zero emission credits. What it is the state of New York agreed to pay the owner of 4 nuclear power plants in western New York, who was losing money on them and threatened to shut them down. The governor came into agreement that the ratepayers throughout the entire state would offset his losses. So they're collecting the ZECs to pay him, so he will keep those nuclear power plants online because it helps the governor meet his requirements for the natural gases in the air. The RECs are, again, for renewable energy credits, and again, it's a way for the governor to get money to help subsidize the building of wind farms and solar farms throughout the state of New York. He plans to have, by 2040, 70% of the power renewable by then. So that's the reason for the Rex and Zex. They're essentially taxes, but they can't be called taxes because they didn't go through the legislature. If he had tried to go to the legislature, it probably would have passed. So we went through the Public Service Commission, so they decided to call them credits instead.
Thank you.
And that's what they are.
Bill, anything else on the internal report on financial standing?
Nope, that's it.
All right, so resolved that the financial report as read is hereby ordered, received and placed on file among the public records in the Municipal Lighting Department office. Moved by Director Kelly, seconded by Director DeDominicis. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move to a roll call. Director Barbell,
Yes.
Director Kelly,
Yes.
Director DeDominicis.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore?
Yes.
Director Reed?
Yes.
That motion carries. Item number 3, departmental reports presented by MLD Manager William Tracy, number A, work in progress.
Yeah, I have a sheet in there with a work in progress. You could read those pretty much. Most of our time between the last meeting, we was moving all our operations from 6 Miller out to 217 Sharon Avenue. On top of that, we continue basic maintenance and stuff of our distribution system and substations. We repaired a number of pedestrian crossings, mainly at Cornelia and Broad. We installed and removed the city Christmas decorations through that time frame. We've been installing new services at 460 Margaret, St. Charles Place, and at our place at Sharon Avenue. And the ice storm that you remember we had a couple of weeks ago, we had to go out the following Monday and melt the ice that was stuck on a lot of the buttons. You couldn't press it. Fortunately, that was the worst that we got with the ice storm. So we were prepared for it. Nothing major happened, fortunately. We did have a couple of trees that come over, but fortunately, they fell away from our power lines in the opposite direction.
That's good.
The next page is the Iep projects for this year. We have a rebate program going for basically appliances and other things. We have our attic insulation program. We got 2 lighting projects. City Hall, I believe they're gonna do the windows this year. So we have $250,000 set aside to pay for the cost of doing that project. And I believe Senator Little has another $300,000 to support that, which should cover the entire cost of redoing the windows. EV chargers, we've installed 2 of them presently. We have one here in front of City Hall, another down at Dock Street, at the marina. We got 2 more, 1 more to go in at the Lower Court Street parking lot, then the next parking lot up by Oliver Wrigley's, and the last one will be going when the bank The old bank building is torn down there.
And the Arnold Pavone Memorial Parking lot.
Yeah,
And those three are the only ones we're doing because there's level 3 chargers coming out possibly in 2021 that the governor doesn't want us building more?
correct.
Okay.
Right now, there's a legal fight with those because the only level 3 cars I believe that exist on the market today are Teslas. And of course, Tesla makes the charger, and they want to be part of the New York State, use their things, and New York State says yes, they will, but they've asked for 2 connection points, one for a Tesla car, one for everybody else's car, GM, Ford, whatever.
Yeah, they use the
And
share.
Tesla says they disagree, they only want Tesla chargers installed for Tesla vehicles. So there's a legal battle, they filed a lawsuit against the state. The whole program is tied up right now until this is resolved, probably sometime this summer.
Okay. And anything on the IEEP program?
Yeah, just look through it.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I lost my thing here.
And I don't have anything else that.
Okay. So moving on to number 4, contracts. A, resolved. Be resolved that the Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department Board hereby approves the execution of the agreement for the sale of the Niagara Project Wholesale Power and Energy and authorizes the mayor to sign a resolution. This resolution will take effect immediately. Sign the resolution, I think I said a resolution.
Well, I wrote that fast this morning, it came in this morning. The governor finally signed the contract about a week ago. This extends our existing hydro for the quantities that we get and extends it out to 2040. The next step is for the MLD board to approve the contract. I do have a memo attached, if you haven't seen it beforehand. It's a lengthy memo, but basically it says the hydro quantities have stayed the same, and the timeframe for expiration is 2040, and all municipals will have to have conservation programs. A lot of municipals were supposed to do that the last time around, they didn't. This time, the state is gonna crack down on the ones, if they don't do it, they will probably lose the hydro. We don't have a problem, we've got an active program, so we're in good shape from that standpoint.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll make the motion to move that.
Second.
Director Barbell seconds. Any further discussion or questions for Manager Tracy? Hearing none, I'll move to roll call. Director Barbell.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director DeDominicis.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Reed.
Yes.
That motion carries. B, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves a 5-year contract with Otis Elevator for maintenance of the elevator at 217 Sharon Avenue as outlined in the contract for a monthly fee of $288 a month. Any motion? Director DeDominicis, Director McFarland will second. Any discussion on that resolution?
This contract is similar to the contract City Hall has with your elevator here. The only difference is yours was signed almost 4 years ago at $280 a month, so it's gone up $8.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to roll call. Director Barbell.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director DeDominicis.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Reed.
Yes.
That motion carries. 5, bid requests. 5A, resolved in accordance with the request therefore, the Municipal Lighting Department Board approves the MLD to advertise for bids for PMLD bid number 2020-2-1, propane operated forklift. Bid opening date is March 10th, 2020 at 11 a.m. in the Common Council chambers. 5B, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD to advertise for bids for PMLD bid number 2020-2-2, natural gas operated power generator. Bid opening date is March 17th, 2020 at 11 a.m. in the Common Council chambers. Do I have a motion? Director DeDominicis, a second? Director Barbell. Any discussion on those 2 bids? Hearing none, we'll move to roll call. Director Barbell.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director DeDominicis.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Reed.
Yes.
Those resolutions carry. Item number 6, monthly write-offs. 6A, resolved, in accordance with request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD to write off unpaid final bills from August 2018 in the total amount of $3,378.55. The percentage of write-offs for this period is 0.26%. The recovered amount for this period is $2,536.29. 6B, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD to write off unpaid final bills from September 2018 in the total amount of $2,650.41. The percentage of write-offs for this period is 0.22%. The recovered amount for this period is $431.16. 6C, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD to write off unpaid final bills from October 2018 in the total amount of $1,735.51. The percentage of write-offs for this period is 0.13%. The recovered amount for this period is $300.86. 6D, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD to write off unpaid final bills for November 2018 in the total amount of $1,252.70. The percentage of write-offs for this period is 0.08%. The recovered amount for this period is $1,190.95. 6E, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD to write off unpaid final bills for December 2018 in the total amount of $1,562.56. The percentage of write-offs for this period is 0.07%. The recovered amount for this period is $1,044.43. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Director Barbell, any second?
I'll second.
Director Moore. Any discussion on these items, the write-offs?
I just had one question. It's for September and October. I noticed we recovered a much smaller amount than the other months. Is there a reason for that, or just the way it turned out?
It's just the way it turned out. I mean, it's the people that skip on us, some of them are college students, some of them are social services clients, and when they leave, social services is prohibited by law by telling us where they move to. Now, for the new people on here, what happens is, this is a requirement from the Public Service Commission. We have to do this occasionally, clean off our books. However, these bills do stay in our computer system. So if these people, sometimes what happens is they move out into nicer country, when the bill's up there, and then they get in trouble out there, then they try to come back into the city, and that's when we usually catch, not all of them, but most of them. And they have to pay up there in order to get the service back on here. So that's at the time we get them.
Thank you.
But, yeah, we pursue them. Some of them, if we can find them in Clinton County, we take them to court, we get judgments against them. That doesn't make them automatically pay. Well, what happens is the court notifies the credit bureaus that they have defaulted on their electric bills. So if they decide to go get a loan for a new car, boat, house, or a new credit card, when a credit report is issued, there's at the top, there's derogatory information that shows up on there, and they have to get that removed in order to get a credit. We've had people up to 10 years after we had filed a case come in and make payment, and they have to pay with interest at that point to get it off their credit reports.
So we may catch up with them in the end.
We catch up with some of them, not all of them, but we catch up with some of them, yes.
Any other questions or further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to roll call. Director Barbell.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director DeDominicis.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Reed.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 7, travel requests. A, resolved. In accordance with the request therefore, the MLD Board approves MLD travel requests for 2020. 1, line helper A and line helper B to attend the required first year of lineman training to be held in Fairport, New York at an estimated cost of $3,025, each for the following travel dates: April 13th through April 17th, 2020, May 11th through the 15th, 2020, August 30th through September 4th, 2020, and
Patrick?
September.
With your permission, I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading and move the resolution.
Director Kelly makes a motion to waive the reading. Any second?
Second.
Director
Yeah.
Barbell,
Okay, go ahead.
Director Barbell seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. The waiving is read. Any discussion on that item?
I just wanted to say, this is our yearly travel expense for the year. I rarely add to this, so this is everything that we will be doing this year. The reason the first line doesn't have a particular name in it, we're in the process of hiring 2 people, so we don't, I got a list of civil service, so I'm working towards that right now. That's why it's line helper A and B.
Thank you. Any other questions on any of these travel requests or discussion on any of these items? Hearing none, we'll move to roll call vote. Director Barbell?
Yes.
Director Kelly?
Yes.
Director DeDominicus?
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore?
Yes.
And Director Reed?
Yes.
That resolution carries as well. Item number 7, old business. Does anyone have any old business they'd like to bring up to the Municipal Lighting Department Board? Hearing none, we'll move on from there to item number 8, new business. Any new business any director would like to bring up to the Municipal Lighting Department Board? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 9, persons addressing the board. Now is the time for any member of the public to address the Municipal Lighting Board if they would like to bring anything to our notice. Any members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on. Do we have a motion for an adjournment?
Yep.
Director DeDominicus, and a second. Director Barbell. Roll call. Director Barbell.
Yes.
Director Kelly.
Yes.
Director DeDominicus.
Yes.
Director McFarland votes yes. Director Moore.
Yes.
Director Reed.
Yes.
Meeting is hereby adjourned, and it is 4:54.
Let's begin the work session for tonight's council meeting then. This will afford us additional time to discuss any items on the agenda, any other issues you'd like to pick up.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I need to take off because
Sure, yeah,
I need to get my medicine. Thank you, everybody.
take care, thanks for the meeting. We can, of course, also entertain committee reports, beginning with Government Strategy and City Operations, Councilor Barbell.
Well, we had a very brief meeting today in advance of the meeting. I think we're supposed to be on full-time next February 6th, I believe it is. And at that time, we'll have both an update on the comprehensive city plan by the Community Development Office and an update on the status of the rate increases in the Recreation Department on utilization and recreation. And I'm not going to go over what we talked about at that point. I think those two things will be explained in fully at the next council meeting.
Thank you. City Infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
Just have one update. City Infrastructure Committee would like to recommend Plan 5A for the Coleman Street remediation, and recommend that. Aside from that, I don't have a whole lot. Some people were wondering why the lights weren't on the nights of the snowstorms the last couple of times. Is there a reason for that, or?
I don't think anybody from DPW is here to speak for it. Often they'll time the lighting based on when they can get the staff in to come and do the additional work following the cleaning up of this, after the snow plows. But please,
Sunday, both of them, or?
yeah, please, if you have any questions regarding individual departments, let me get those questions to them in advance so they know to be here or to resolve those questions before the meeting.
Good, that's all I had.
Finance and Budget, Councilor Kelly.
No update.
Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor DeDominicus.
Just attended the my first meeting with them on Tuesday. Just updates, positions changing and filling there, but otherwise, things are going well and continue to look forward to working with him.
I'm going to speak to public safety on behalf of Councilor Gibbs. Who's the second member on that committee?
That's all right.
Councilor Barwell.
The Public Safety Committee has been having ongoing discussions, I think, primarily with the fire department, on staffing levels. The staffing levels in the fire department are down from 36 to 32, I think, staff. And there's an ongoing set of conversations with the fire department to determine a way to kind of potentially add a second ambulance and fill the vacant positions at the fire department. And the second ambulance would then potentially offset some of the cost of operating the ambulance and the fire department. This is a beginning conversation that has just started, and we will know more in a week or two, I would assume, before we have an answer as to whether or not an agreement between the city and the fire department will take place. And I think that's the major conversation that's been going on this week.
And just to clarify for the public, when we talk about staffing levels, there's been no reduction for a decade or so in the number of firefighters that are on duty at a given station on a given day. There's always a 6 firefighter minimum, and no changes in that. I think the number you're referring to is how many firefighters they draw upon to maintain that daily staffing level.
Right. And our objective is really to ensure that at any time that a call comes in, there's sufficient staff on board for a pumper, and the ladder truck to get out to those sites in quick response to begin attacking the fires.
And of course, the city's very proud of our fire rating, which recently, just last summer, went up to 80. So it's very important for our safety force. Thank you. And MLD Board President, Councilman McFarland?
Yes, we just had our first MLD board meeting of the year. It was like every other one for the most part. No one came and spoke at it. We passed some write-offs, approved some bids, and we look forward to our next one.
Any items on the agenda that you'd like to have further discussion on? Councillor Moore, you said from your committee you're recommending for the Cogan Avenue project 5A, which was two-way street, one side parking, narrower sidewalks on each side for 2 sidewalks to be consistent with the engineering requirements. Is that correct?
I wish Councilor Gibbs could have been here, because she's the one that talked to most people, but I want to thank her, and I want to thank all the people that came and gave input on it. It was very helpful, and I think we arrived at a better solution through all that development.
And the point of that research that your committee's done and outreach you've done is to determine advice for engineers so they can design accordingly and have this be able to be completed in the late spring, early summer time frame. So the next step, since you've already actually approved the capital plan for the project early this year, the next step is to give guidance for the engineering work that still needs to be done.
Very good.
Any other discussion on that, Councilor Kelly?
Mayor, I'd like to talk about 7A and 7B. These are change orders that add to the cost of the $250,000 we set aside for asbestos abatement. And neither of these amounts are very large considering the total cost, but I'd like to ask Mr. Miller to explain to us what these charges are and how they came up.
Sure, I'll start with 7A. That was $1,500, and that was because they had to remove a 4-foot frost wall that was located underneath the smallest building down in MLD that they were unaware of at the time of bidding. The second one, change order number 2, that was due to asbestos abatement that was taking place in Building 3, which is the building right in the center of the MLD complex. They were in the middle of the abatement work. There was a considerable amount of bad weather. They had taken necessary precautions, but then we had that freezing rainstorm that added a considerable amount of weight to the ceiling, which then collapsed into the garage below it. And the amount of work that goes into cleaning up asbestos like that is very considerable. I asked KAS for a summary, and it's quite involved what they have to do when something like that happens. So
Okay.
that's where the costs come from.
Is
I guess
the,
it is-
payment for that still coming out of the Restore New York grant?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're willing to pay the additional amount,
Yes, the grant was for up to $1 million. So the
Okay.
bid that we got was somewhere in the $350,000 range, so we've got plenty of room.
okay, excellent, thank you so much, man, appreciate that.
Any other items? You
Well-
see a relatively significant item for this council will be coming up, your consideration of the now completed draft GEIS, which is now in its final form, ready for your consideration. Did you want any further discussion on this at this time? I know it's a lengthy document. Fortunately, it's most of the added length from when you considered it last was in the form of responses to comments and full documentation of all the comments that occurred during the comment period.
Mayor, we had a good discussion just before this meeting about this document, and Council Schneller explained to us what happens next. It might be good if he'd be willing to share that with the public.
Sure. So this is towards the end of a rather drawn-out process. It started many months ago when the city Common Council sought and received lead agency status, and with that, we went down a path of hiring Shazen consultants to help us prepare a generic environmental impact statement with the design of reviewing and analyzing all potential environmental impacts from various downtown revitalization projects. After we were lead agency, with much research, Shazen prepared a scoping document which laid out the confines of the environmental review. That was subject to public input. Once the scoping document was finalized, they got to work. They analyzed the project and any impacts, performed various studies, and resulted with a draft GEIS. That draft was then presented to the public and reviewed by the council. And that was, the meat and potatoes of the actual review. But the public had an opportunity to comment and did in fact make various comments which were received until the end of 2019. And now this document is the finalized version of the GEIS, which further cleans up the actual document, but more importantly, for your purposes, addresses every substantive comment that was received and provides a comprehensive response to that comment. By accepting this, we are at the end stage of the environmental review, but every other additional board who has a specific action in front of them will still also have to analyze whether the environmental review was sufficient and for their limited purposes, and essentially adopt this as well. There'll also be some other publication and notification requirements if and when the council adopts this document. As far as specific substance, I believe Representative from Shazen will be here tonight.
First round will be here from Jason around 5:30 to answer any details.
So he was taking lead on a point by point if there is a specific question. And certainly this document has been shared to the council, and the most recent version, only the substantive changes were primarily based on the comments and then the responses to those comments.
Okay. So then on November 21st, 2019, that your group initially looked at the draft GEIS. There was a public hearing, usually about approximately 10 days after that, in early December 4th, 2019. and comments were already coming in even before the public hearing, and then the comment period closed December 23rd, 2019. And so the Shazing Group has been working to incorporate those comments ever since.
Mayor, there's one additional step. The council, should they decide to accept the FGEIS tonight, there's a 10-day waiting period, after which the council will be called upon to accept one final document, which is called the GEIS finding statement, which is essentially an executive summary of the FGEIS. That is the final step in the process. Beyond that, the city can actually take steps to begin the physical work on the projects.
Thank you. Any further questions at this time? Any other items you'd like to discuss?
Just on this, I don't know what you're pushing.
Mhm.
You just push it along as you go.
I can advance it from
Oh,
here.
okay.
If there's no other items on the agenda you'd like to take up, I'll bore you with my summer vacation photos. Actually, I gave a presentation this morning on the state of the state. You want to press F5 there to get it up?
State of the city?
Or state of the city, pardon me, yeah. So I'll just run over it with you, just a dozen slides. We presented this to the Chamber of Commerce gathering. The county, the city, and the town of Plattsburgh are out beginning of each year to kind of summarize where our various municipalities or entities are at. So I led off with a picture that you've been considering, some recent renderings for how the corner bridge in Turkey Street would look. Summarize a little bit, noting that Plattsburgh is the only city within 100 miles in New York State and the second largest city in the North Country, with some great attributes, including our very cheap power, as you just reviewed in your MLD meeting, but also a lot of history and great beauty. But we suffer various challenges, just like all rural legacy cities do. Nonetheless, I know this council is very determined to overcome these challenges, because we feel a great responsibility to maintain this important facility for the rest of the area. We have about 25% of the Clinton County population on 5.1 square miles, which is only 1/200th of the land area in Clinton County. So that represents 200 times the population density of the rest of the county. As you well know, our property tax base is about $1.5 billion, but 1/3 of that is exempt for our hospitals, our universities, our schools, our churches, etc. So the taxpayers are responsible for running the city based on 2/3 of the property tax base, the non-exempt property taxes. We have 3 funds that we work with. The one we focus often in this group on is the general fund, because that is paid for directly by taxpayers. It's about they're about equal shares, about $20 million each of the various 3 units. One general fund and 2 enterprise funds, one for water and sewer and the other for electricity, approximately. About 27% of retail sales in the county are here. 32% of adults in our city have bachelor's degrees. We, of course, are very proud to house the county seat, the hospital, the university as well. And more than 80% of our residents have high-speed internet, and now with fiber coming to the city of Plattsburgh, we're increasingly having 1 gigabit service for internet as well, which I recently signed up with.
I was not aware of that. When is that coming?
Verizon, you may have seen the Verizon truck stringing wires everywhere along the city this summer. So they're just starting to hook up, so very fast service. This graph is in real terms, in other words, inflation-adjusted terms. It shows that we've actually had a couple of financial crises. We had a crisis in the early 2000s that had our unassigned fund balance drop to about 0. And as you realize, another one relatively recently where our fund balance dropped to about 0 as well. Each followed with a lot of reforms that, in this case, brought the fund balance up to about $7 million, which was then depleted again over the following 5 or 6 years. And we've been bringing that fund balance up now. We're starting to see the numbers come in for 2019. Created a healthy surplus for 2019 through the very diligent work of our department heads and the good work of the council, and that's added to the fund balance. So now we're starting to get into a fund balance that's, I wouldn't call it quite comfortable, still a little bit precarious, as the most recent narrative from Moody's is narrating right now for us. But it certainly is a lot better than where we were just a few years ago. It's starting to get into that range of more than 10%, I think, by the end of this year. I'm hopeful as all the numbers come in, which is a big relief. All these graphs, by the way, can be found if you look at the OpenGov link on the left-hand side of our website. It'll take you right to a place where many of these graphs are generated. Shows where our operating budget was, and you can see over our 3 funds we're coming in quite a bit lower than our budget was in the 3 funds combined, so that's very good news. We can see that just about exactly 75% of all of the costs in the general fund are from personal services, either personal services and their associated employee benefits or the benefits from the retirees. General fund now represents around 70%, or general fund debt represents around 70% of our annual spending. It's a pretty healthy ratio. We've been very careful with our debt. We've been, as you've been seeing, trying to trend our overall city debt down as a share of annual expenditures. That's in contrast to the United States, which has probably a federal budget somewhere around $2 or $3 trillion and debt now about $20 trillion, 10 times their annual spending, whereas ours is about 50% or 70% of our annual spending. So we're managing that debt very well. And as you know, we went out and got it refinanced without extending the length of that debt, but at lower interest rates relatively recently to lower the interest rate burden as well. Road building, if you take the anomaly of that a big construction year when they redid South Catherine, you've been seeing road building for the last half dozen years had been down to really less than 1 mile, often half a mile or less of road per year. And in the last 3 years, we've been road building at rates averaging over 2 miles per year and taking care of some of our worst roads. Kogan Avenue, which I know members of the audience are in Kogan Avenue had been slotted for rebuilding. I went back as far as 2012. I couldn't go back any farther. I couldn't find data any farther than that, but it had been on that list to be redone for many, many years. So finally we're getting it to these roads that should have been done many, many years ago and are definitely, we've been paying the price for that lack of maintenance, but we're certainly on that now by rebuilding roads at 2, 3, 6 times the rate as we have been doing in previous years. So the last few years have been working out very well. A lot more optimism in the city. We've now been, for the first time in my 3 years, been having a number of developers approach us saying they'd like to do projects in the city of Plattsburgh. That hasn't been happening for decades, I believe, so that's really exciting. And I attribute it to some of the work we're doing in the DRI with the $10 million investment, followed by private investment, another $25 million, upwards of $25 million through the Prime Plattsburgh. $19 million of grants and loans for water and wastewater infrastructure potentially, many of which we're more eligible for because we're a DRI city, and we are increasingly eligible because we're also a city with fiscal hardship, although as you saw that's no longer an advantage for us in grant writing. But that's attracted a lot more funds, and we've been very successful in grant writing over the last few years. And the annual spending from the GEIS shows that total direct and indirect jobs, wages, and expenditures could result in as much as $3.4 million of additional annual sales, not only for our city, but also for the region as a consequence of the DRI investment. So I believe we're on a bit of an economic and urban renaissance. I'm very grateful to the governor in kicking this off through the DRI investment, but I'm also very appreciative of all the work you all are doing in very careful planning, fiscal conservatism, sound economic analysis. I think we all agree that we need to create more affordable housing, Our land bank proposal, as you know, we're asking for the Assemblyman Billy Jones and Senator Bay Little help us to create a land bank for the city of Plattsburgh and bring some of the derelict and abandoned properties back into use for to attract more people into the city. And my goal is to not only create a much firmer foundation for the city fiscally and make sure that our revenues balance our expenditures, but I believe that instead of having moderate tax growth as other municipalities try to maintain, I think we have the opportunity, as we saw this year in our budget, to actually roll taxes back a little bit. I don't think it'd be totally out of the question to get a single digit a mill rate back again someday if we can keep on the same road as we've been doing lately, without doing that at the expense of services. As you see, services, especially infrastructure investments, actually expanding. So I think we're on the right track. I think we can do all these things simultaneously, and I certainly appreciate all the help of the Common Council in making that happen. We've got a great Common Council, so I really appreciate it. And I mentioned to the group when I spoke today is if they'd like to verify any of this for themselves, they ought to go to our website and cityofplattsburgh.com and click on the OpenGov link on the left-hand side, left-hand column, and look at a variety of different data that now the citizens will have access to. Also on that website is a listing of the 100 or so public forums that the Planning and Community Development Office have gone through to bring the GEIS to fruition today. And this is a view, by the way, from the renderings you saw in the GEIS, what that Memorial Bridge may look like coming west and viewing the updated waterfront along Turkey Street. So that's it. Thank you. Any other items you'd like to discuss today? Seeing none, we could take a short recess till 5:30 and then resume our regular meeting. Do you all have all your stuff signed over there? All the packets ready to go?
This is all signed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we got 10 minutes, 5:30, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay with signing to primary talent in New York State.
Is he not, he wouldn't be currently?
He has to get a supplemental petition across the state. It does not mean you support him. It just means that you're okay with him being on the ballot.
That's fair.
Would you be willing?
Yeah. Black pen, okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much for doing that.
The date here, is that, what is the date?
The 30th. Oh, my wife.
Printer name.
Appreciate you doing that.
Sure. I believe people should have a choice. Yes, sir.
Okay, appreciate it. I gotta turn them in tonight, that's why.
No problem.
Okay, thanks. Hey, Reed. Are you done with this? Okay, I'm gonna return.
Didn't see it.
No, I didn't see this one. Never, the payroll never made it down this far. You know I don't like that payroll.
What?
You know I don't like it. I don't let that payroll get past Paul. And I want you to get paid, I just don't want to sign it. This trial, my wife is in Albany. What's that? My wife's from Albany. She got home like what'd she do? What? What'd she do? County work or engineering work? Or some combination of the two? Something like that. Something like that.
Sorry, am I correct?
Side of it. She got me on this thing. She tells me so much she's gonna see this thing. Which I forgot about. State account. She's like, I would give you that. Got nothing.
Sign your name.
Finally, I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
I didn't read it on my phone. You know, this just sucks.
She's
Yeah,
not.
she's not here.
Thank you.
This new person must be the first person I chose.
Oh, probably Matt.
But something that's big, I like.
Your pen.
Yes, I agree.
Do you need one or that one?
Because you got a pen?
Yeah, but if you give me another, it's gonna be swollen.
When I was reading those questions, I'm like, it's like, we go back to 3.2, and you're scrolling. Like, fuck that.
My agenda, oh, here it is.
We're not on for 2 seconds. For the most of it. Pick you up next time. Guys, I already put my money on the 49ers. I don't really. I think Kansas City can fake it very easily, but I want the 49ers. But I really like Patrick Mahomes. I only bet $50, so I could do more or less. One of those box to this document.
Yes, they made us a copy.
Last time. It's a high school interest, they return a kickoff, and you're getting so repetitive. There's $60 a lot.
Yeah.
Was helpful.
Turning around.
It's just so complex, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed they can return the kickoff. Yeah, yeah. You got a good chance.
Best thing we've ever done. Just look at that. Pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. The shot back.
Let's begin tonight's meeting of the Common Council with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Reed,
Present.
Counselor Barbell,
Here.
Counselor Kelly,
Here.
Counselor Gibbs, Counselor DeDominicis,
Here.
Counselor McFarland,
Here.
Counselor Moore.
Here,
In the interest of brevity, I'll move on to my mayor's comments.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Common Council held on January 23rd, 2020 are approved and placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office.
Moved by Councilor DeDominicis and seconded by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Resolved that the payrolls of the various departments of the city of Plattsburgh for the week ending January 29th, 2020 in the amount of $484,136.31 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby empowered and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Kelly and seconded by Councilor Moore. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? We went over and offered various committee reports during our work session. Are there any additional committee reports you have at this time? Seeing none, none, resolve the reports that are hereby ordered received, and any written reports are placed on file among the public records of the city clerk's office. Moved by Councilor Iep and second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. No correspondence or recommendation from boards at this time. Please continue.
Resolved that the bill brought by the Common Council for the week ending January 31st, 2020, in the amount of $523,521.42 are authorized and allowed, and the mayor and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to sign warrants drawn on the city chamberlain for the payment thereof.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. As part of the agenda, we afford the public the opportunity to come and comment on items on the agenda. There are agendas just outside the door if you don't already have one. And there will be an additional comment period for other issues not on the agenda following at the end of the meeting as well. So if you'd like to please come comment, there's a sign-up sheet here. Please come forward. On agenda items only this time.
Whatever signed up.
Sir?
Does this work or is it not on?
It's recorded.
My name is John Gordon, and see, I was addressing the council in regards to agenda item J regarding the tenant and landlord committee. And on December 13th, Mayor, I received an email from you inviting me to sit on that committee as a member of the Plattsburgh Tenants Association. I had accepted that, and on the 16th, the holidays that ensued, communication was quiet. On January 12th, I reached out to you again, and you had responded that you were still awaiting some nominations. In my mind, the conversation was still open. However, with the publishing of the list on this agenda, I see that my name has not been placed on it despite my acceptance of your invitation.
I was soliciting nominations. I wasn't making offers. Ultimately, it's the common council that makes that determination.
Understood. One final concept, viewing that roster, the material and social relationship of tenants and landlords creates a fundamentally uneven playing field, and our political representation should take that into account, and I don't believe that it has in this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please come forward. Have you signed up?
I've signed. I'm Tim Palkovic, living in the city. I'm commenting on the placement of the DEG report and acceptance at the end of today's meeting. This is an important issue. It's as big as when the Air Force Base left the city. It addresses the economic and social life of the city. It should be voted on after it's given to those people who have voted on the report and made comments, and after the people in the city have had a chance to read it on the website, not before. It appears that you plan to vote on it before anyone who's commented on the DEG has had a chance to make their statement.
Thank you.
Any other individuals, please come and address the council.
Is Cogan Avenue on the agenda?
No. Seeing none, please continue.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves the mayor be authorized to sign change order number 1 to the asbestos abatement and demolition of Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department PMLD buildings, contract with Ormsby Trucking and Excavating in the amount of $1,500.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Barbell?
Yes.
Councilor Kelly?
Yes.
Councilor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Councilor McFarland?
Yeah.
Councilor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore the common council approves that the mayor be authorized to sign change order number 2 to the asbestos abatement and demolition of Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department, PMLD buildings, contract with Ormsby Trucking and Excavating in the amount of $15,991.
Moved by Councilor Kelly,
Second.
second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion?
Mayor, during our work session, we discussed these two change orders, and Matthew Miller from the Community Development Office answered those to my satisfaction, and I assume everyone else is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Was it the work session?
Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council adopts the bond resolution authorizing $819,000 of debt to be issued by the city on behalf of the Water Fund to provide funding for the capital project H 8320-80-2020 water system improvements.
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves the execution of the agreement for the sale of Niagara Project Wholesale Power and Energy and authorizes the mayor to sign the resolution. This resolution will take effect immediately.
So moved.
By Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor DeDominicis. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves a 5-year contract with Otis Elevator for maintenance of the elevator at 217 Sharon Ave, as outlined in the contract for a monthly fee of $288 a month, and that the mayor is authorized to sign the maintenance contract.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Barbell. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves MLD to advertise for bids for PMLD bid number 2020-2-1 propane operated forklift. Bid opening date is March 10th, 2020 at 11 a.m. in the common council chambers.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request, therefore, the common council approves MLB to advertise for bids for PMLD bid number 2020-2-2 natural gas operated power generator. Bid opening date is March 17th, 2020 at 11 a.m. in the common council chambers.
Moved by Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor McFarland. Discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with
Beth,
the
I'd like
request.
to waive the reading of item number 7H and move to resolution.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Barbell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion of the item itself. Roll call?
Counselor Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Accepting final generic environmental impact statement for downtown area improvements projects and authorizing public notices in accordance with requirements of state environmental quality review. Whereas the city of Plattsburgh revitalization efforts will involve several downtown area improvements projects, collectively the projects, and whereas the Plattsburgh Common Council determined that the projects collectively are type 1 action pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, (SECRA), identified potential involved agencies under SECRA and was duly designated as SECRA lead agency with the consent of the involved agencies. And whereas the Common Council determined to conduct comprehensive reviews of the projects through preparation of a generic environmental impact statement, GEIS, pursuant to SECRA and section 617.10 of the implementing regulations set forth at Title VI of the New York Compilation of Codes, Rules, and Regulations, NYCRR, and whereas the Chasing Companies prepared a draft scoping document pursuant to 6 NYCRR section 617.8, and the Common Council, as SECRA lead agency, provided a copy of the draft scope to all involved agencies, made it available to any individual or SECRA interested agency that expressed an interest in writing to the lead agency, and provided both a period of time for the public to review and provide written comments on the draft scope and a public scoping session to provide for public input. And whereas the final scoping document was accepted by the Common Council and Chazen prepared a draft GEIS, DGEIS, in accordance with the final scoping document to assess the potential impacts of the projects, and the DGEIS was accepted as complete for public review by the Common Council on November 21st, 2019. And whereas the DGEIS and notice of completion were duly circulated to all secret involved and interested agencies, the DGEIS was posted to the city's website, and a notice of acceptance of draft GEIS and public hearing was published in the Environmental Notice Bulletin, ENB, on December 4th, 2019. And whereas the public hearing on the DGEIS was held on December 9th, 2019, and written comments on the DGEIS were accepted by the Common Council as lead agency until December 23rd, 2019. And whereas a final GEIS, FGEIS, has been prepared, which includes, among other things, responses to comments on the DGEIS, and now therefore be it resolved as follows. The Common Council hereby accepts and approves the FGEIS. The city clerk is authorized and directed to file and publish a notice of completion of FGEIS, and file and provide copies of the FGEIS as required by SECRA, and copies of the FGEIS will be available for inspection at the city clerk's office, Plattsburgh City Hall, 41 City Hall Place, Plattsburgh, New York, and on the city's website at https://www.cityofplattsburgh-ny.gov/604 DRI Environmental Impact GEIS.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Moore. Discussion.
Good job, Beth.
Well, I'd just like to thank the Chazen companies for creating this document and making it so thorough and answering the commenters so quickly. That you're right on schedule, and I think our community development office feels as though they're on schedule for future projects as a result. So it's been a really, really good process so far.
Can we ask Chazen to just kind of go through the remainder, like what happens from here, or can we?
This is Chris Brown from Chazen. He was the project lead for GEIS.
Sure. I think the resolution was very thorough, said very much. What you're asked to do tonight is to accept this document. The next step in the process is the development of a finding statement. Finding statement is basically a compilation of the record and the basis for decision making, hence findings. And much of that information is contained in the final GEIS. There's a they call it cooling off period. There's a 10-day period. You have to wait at least 10 business days post acceptance of this final document, and then that is published or accepted by adopted by this board, and then that would conclude the seeker process, and then any of the permitting agencies, or reviewing agencies are then allowed to move forward with their review process. It doesn't guarantee approvals, but it sets the basis for the environmental record and allows all the entities to move forward. There's publication and distribution notices as well with the findings as there is with the final GEIS. Okay.
No, we had a member of the public come and just address the council about that he thought it should be released before we approve it, but I see a part of this, the resolution is to approve it for publishing, so that the public can read it. Dean, do you have any comment on that?
Well, so there's mandatory public participation component built into this GIS process, primarily with respect to the public hearing, which was completed in end of 2019, as well as the public comment period. So there's processes built in throughout it, and those comments have been integrated into this actual document and responded to, as far as the substantive comments to the document itself. Now, certainly, once it's published, everyone has a right to continue to express their concerns, but as far as mandatory processes, that's the process that's been followed.
I guess my question is, we're voting to release it so that the public can view it, correct?
You're accepting this document and agreeing that it's a final, complete
Yeah.
document.
Yeah, I think you said there's not a public comment process built into the final. That's the draft, and so it is confusing for many folks. There is guidance in that the public, anybody can comment it post-adoption. The process doesn't require any response to those comments after adoption, but it could inform decision makers as moving forward. So it allows for that. Thank you.
Coming up. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Whereas citizen advisory committees are a valuable means of enhancing the exchange of ideas between city residents and the city of Plattsburgh Common Council, and whereas advisory committees are able to focus on a single
Beth,
issue.
I'll move to waive the reading and move to resolution.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor DeDominicis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion of the item itself.
Well, I didn't want to make Beth read the whole thing. It's tempting. But basically, this appoints a 9-member party or committee. It consists of Councilors Mike Kelly and Jeff Moore, Kai Ford, a landlord, Carol Klepper, a landlord, Shalice Marbett, a tenant, Emily Stacy, a tenant, Bob Smith, a member at large, and Art DeGrandpré, a member at large, and obviously Mayor Reed, ex officio.
And I would like to see this committee do an awful lot of work, very, in some sense, in continuation of the good work the council already began with the Livable Communities Committee, as we saw with the rental registry that you all considered a few months ago. There's a gap between tenants' expectations and landlords' expectations. I hope that this committee can fill a role in kind of filling that gap and meeting expectations. And I think, given that 2/3 of the housing in the city of Plattsburgh is rental, it's incumbent upon us to have good dialogue between those two groups. And I'm very pleased that all the people that were willing to serve on this, including our guest tonight, and certainly like to keep in mind if there's an opening again for absentees. I very much appreciate your interest, but I think it's about time to get that dialogue going in such an important sector in our city. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Resolved in accordance with the request,
Beth,
therefore
I'll
the-
waive a reading and move to resolution on item number 8A.
Moved by Councilor McFarland, second by Councilor Barbell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Discussion on the item itself.
These were discussed in the MLD board meeting. If anyone wants to discuss it further.
Roll call?
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor DeDominicis?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Are there any resolutions for initial consideration at this time? Any new business or additional council reports?
Yes, I will probably put forth a resolution soon. I do think that it is appropriate for some of the intersections in the city of Plattsburgh to lose the street traffic lights and go to stop signs. The one I'm thinking of the most is Court Street and Oak Street. So I will probably talking to legal counsel soon and see if we can perhaps change that to a stop signs, all-way stop signs instead of traffic lights, although we can keep the traffic lights there and have them blinking red and see how it goes. I have some other intersections in mind, but I do think that will help with traffic and certainly help with safety on those intersections as well.
And certainly, let's have you meet with our planner to discuss that as well. Thank you.
I'll do that.
Any other new business?
Yes, Mayor, during our work session, Councilor Moore suggested that we adopt answer 5A for Colgan Avenue. And while we don't vote on those, we, of course, approved it as a capital budget item last year. But should there be some further discussion about Colgan Avenue and, I mean,
I think so. I'd like to see that on the agenda for next time, because I like 5 better than 5A personally.
Well-
And of those options.
Well, it's not an agenda item because it's not a voting item. It certainly is open for discussion, so we can advise the engineers accordingly. And you can feel free to discuss that whenever you prefer.
If we, I guess, since we're talking about it, so for me, I'm definitely on the fence. I've listened to the residents of Colgan. I live in Ward 4. I don't have sidewalks. Other sections of my ward do not have sidewalks. Changes kind of the fundamental feel of a neighborhood. So, you know, what you've got when you move there, things change when we make decisions like this. And I guess for me, I'm stuck. I understand the need for, and I appreciate the work that has gone into these options. But I also know that we, you know, have a 20-year-old comprehensive plan, and I'm a planner, you know, by heart. I think that thoughtful reflection on these things is important because what we do in one place affects what we do in other places. And so whatever we recommend, and I realize we don't have a vote, we're sort of giving the guidance to the engineer. I think we need to be mindful of what that means for other sections of the city, including the rest of the West End. I know we talked a little bit about the comprehensive plan, and again, the timing is a little off because the comprehensive plan is going to take some time, obviously, and Colgan needs to be is slated to be repaired, and with that repair comes choices that have to be made. But you know, for me, I really would like to see if we have a little bit more time, I would like to see just a little bit more time before we're recommending something as it relates to the comprehensive plan. Understanding that we can't wait forever, but that I do think what we do here sets a template for the rest of that neighborhood and other neighborhoods that in the city, and we need to be mindful of that. So that's mine.
Yeah, I'll agree on that. And specifically with the options available, I still like the narrower streets. And I don't like the turnarounds on the side. If we're gonna do sidewalks, I'd rather do them without the turnarounds. And clearly, members of the public are not really in favor of sidewalks. However, when they're presenting that trade-off between sidewalks and street parking, that gets a little trickier, but clearly a lot of the members of the public don't want sidewalks. They don't want much change to the street at all. I've driven down it a few times recently. But 5A is not my preferred choice, even if the choice is laid out.
And I guess for me, I don't know that I have a choice yet. I don't know that we've looked at it as part of the whole, and that's what my concern is.
Well, I'd just like to say, you know, that the entire city is unique, and some things are gonna have to be treated differently than others. But this is definitely a rebuild situation versus a repave situation. So it does bring to light more items that we have to consider versus, you know, just a repave or something where we are addressing drainage and water and sewer lines, which is very expensive and probably will not happen a whole heck of a lot in the future, because we probably don't have enough money to do things like we did on South Catherine Street and like here. That's the reason it probably languished so long, is because it is so expensive to do this type of an upgrade. So
No,
I just wanted to state that.
And I understand that what happens in one section doesn't necessarily have, like, the wards and neighborhoods are different, but I do think we need to, in general, have a more comprehensive look at each part of the city as we make decisions, that's all.
I agree, Paul.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that any of these choices are, you know, I guess at this point, I'm just not settled that I can make a recommendation without a larger conversation, at least over the next couple of weeks.
I think we've talked about this for approximately 2 weeks already, maybe 3, and we've had a lot of back and forth discussion, which is always good. but I think it's time for us to come to consensus. And if we need another week to do that, I could understand it. I hope we can do it by next week at the latest. Our Department of Public Works, as you know, was chomping at the bit to get started on this project, or at least to begin planning it. So I would suggest we try and get this done by the end of next week, by next week's meeting.
No, the infrastructure committee has made our recommendation. We have discussed it at great length, and I'm disappointed that Elizabeth can't be here, but she talked to a lot of people, and she felt it was the best way forward also, so just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I think I'm also in favor of option 5A because it, you know, it has sort of the best of everything. It has on-street parking, which our residents have expressed a need for. It has the sidewalks, which the DOT says we should have if they're going to fund it. So it just seems like a great compromise, but we all need to be, you know, on the same sheet of music when it comes to that, I think.
I don't know if it will all be on the same sheet of music, but, you know, I want to thank the people who came here from Cogan, and some of you are still here at this meeting. But prior to that, I was very much in favor of repaving the road and put stripes down the side. Until I learned fiscally, this is going to cost us a tremendous amount of money if we go in that direction. That, you know, there are unfunded mandates that you hear about all the time. Well, the state has tied the receipt of, you know, highway funds to the city and other jurisdictions in New York State to the receipt of state funds. If we don't move to comply with the ADA and complete streets and those actions, we will stand to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars on our projects. For somebody who came on this council because I want to see our budget managed in a conservative fiscal way, I can't bring myself to say that, well, we'll just ignore that and use taxpayer dollars to make up the deficit that's going to be there. I don't know that there's a serious problem with handicapped individuals or anybody having accidents or problems going on Cogan. But if I were gonna vote on this, I think it's the best option that is aligned with, I will say, the information that we're getting from the state, is that we will go with 5A, or we should go with 5A, and to the extent possible, keep those sidewalks. You know, I don't like turnarounds either, but rather than taking an additional foot, rather than 4 feet of property, I'm going to 5 feet. I think keeping the amount of property that's necessary to put the sidewalks as well as the road in to the minimal that will be there, and minimize the impact on Cogan Avenue.
That's why narrow the street more. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So, that's my 2 cents on it at this point.
Any further discussion? Any other closing comments? This is now a time where the public can please come address the council on any issues that you should. Be sure you've signed it.
I have signed in already, thank you. Name is Thomas O'Keefe, 48 Cogan. I've never thought so much about what I want to say. It's changed by the minute. First of all, I've always believed the old saying, you don't want to throw a baby out with the bathwater, as crude as that may sound. So I would like to thank Councilwoman Gibbs. She did contact me last week. She told me the item was going to be discussed. I did show up. It was, to be quite honest, half-assed discussed. I don't understand the gamesmanship here, but I ask you this. I applaud that. I got a response finally from the mayor this time. I don't know if a negative, I don't want to talk to you response is any more or less hurtful. I'm still evaluating that. But I can tell you this, I did not mean to be here in a vitriolic way, in a mean way. I'm very passionate about open government. You had something on the agenda about open government. I know what that is. I don't know what open government does for people when you don't communicate with the people. I would hope you take this week and take the next half hour. I don't have a particular dog in this race. There are 3 parts of Cogan. Cornelia to Park, Park to Dennis, where I live, and then Dennis to Ruger. They're all different. They're all different in width. But please, I implore upon you to listen to the people that are affected in the first part. You know, we stand on hallowed ground here, and we honor these people. Last meeting, I heard the honoring of the War of 1812 and veterans. And it is right and just that we should, but we owe them an open government. They deserve no less. Sir, I don't even know you, but last week you made the comment, we need to advertise this. That's where we left this last week. It was going to be on the website, and we were going to discuss it. I ask you, is it? No. No. I have to wait till the end here. I'm a 59-year-old man with a heart condition, and I will wait because I'd rather die than give up my liberty. And you said the right thing, sir, tonight. And I hope you listen to these people, and I hope you take into account it still gives you all the authority in the world. I understand we're a republic. You don't come to us with every issue. I get it. But you should at least come to us. And before you tell me I get no interest, I was riding in an ambulance on August 11th, right where it's going to be fixed, okay? And all I could think of is if Governor Cuomo was riding up here trying to get a stick in his arm, we'd have a new road. And then guess what? I died on Cogan Avenue. So please don't ever tell me I have no interest in any part of that street. I thank you. Please continue. Let me write this. I have 10 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, 5 daughters. Please rewrite this story that you listen to the people, that the government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. Thank you, and God bless you all, and God bless America.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the members like to please come and sign up and speak.
Hi, so my name is Sarah Martin. I do first want to comment on something someone said. It is true that if you want to discuss something, you don't need to put it on the agenda, but you should for the sake of transparency. So I appreciate someone bringing that up before. That is not why I am up here talking. I did want to speak about the committee for this new housing piece that you guys have put into your legislation. I don't know, so I'm very immersed in the housing world, and I kind of knew nothing about putting this committee together, and so if this was something that was publicized, I apologize, but I'm very curious as to how it came together, and the individuals, and this is in no way, shape, or form an attack on the individuals who have been selected, but the piece of legislation that you guys have created is a very complex piece with a whole lot of holes in it. I think that it has the capacity to be really great for both sides. It also has the capacity to be really terrible for both sides. For one, you're talking about starting this, having the registration roll out March 1st. In the legislation, there's nothing in there that talks about, does this cost any money? How exactly you're going to be doing this? Says the permits need to be started May 1st. Are you doing the permits all at once? Is the code enforcer doing it for every piece of property all at once? What happens if they don't pass the permits? Are they going to get a certificate of occupancy? Is everyone going to be thrown out of their places if they don't get a CO? Where are all those people going to go if they all get thrown out? These are things that are very, very important to not just the people who are living there who could be facing potential homelessness, which might seem extreme, very well, but that is still a possibility based on the way the legislation is written, but also the landlords who would then be losing a bunch of money. So looking at the board you have selected, you have 2 landlords, you have 2 tenants, okay, great. You also have 2 members at large. There's no description as to what qualifies you as a member at large. Is a member at large also a tenant, also a landlord? Are they a homeowner? So a member at large could very well be a landlord as well. Also, I don't understand why there's no housing advocates. Obviously, someone who is a housing advocate was very interested and becoming a part of this? Why aren't there any attorneys or anyone who is a specialist in housing? As someone who has read housing legislation, it's super complicated. Even I went to a Chamber of Commerce training on the new legislation that was rolled out, which was primarily landlords in attendance, and with all due respect, it was very complicated for a lot of the landlords. And it's also very complicated for the tenants. So not a lot of people have a handle on it, so I think you need someone in there that does have a handle. Why is there no one from code in there? This is all about code. I'm not gonna get into it, but I have a bunch of notes in here about, of questions, and I would need someone from code right here to be able to answer this stuff. So I feel like there's a huge gap. And in terms of housing advocates, there's so many people who could have been reached out to. You could have reached out to Legal Aid Society, JCEO, ETC, MHAB, DSS, CDI, and again, Plattsburgh Tenants Advocacy Association has reached out to you and was just kind of brushed aside. So again, I don't know if there was transparency that was out there, and I'm just kind of ignorant to this, and things have been spoken out, or you guys have provided this information, but I think it's something we need to take very seriously, especially considering some of the language and even the purpose straight up implies gentrification. I mean, in it, it says one of the things that you want to see is to maintain the value of properties. It also says in here that if landlords can't afford to fix their properties, that the city will ensure they get capital, and it said it'll straighten that out in the chapter, but it never mentions that again. So there's a lot in here that's extremely complicated that needs a lot of work, and and again, maybe these however many people you got, maybe someone on there, I do know at least one person who has a housing advocate mind, and maybe one of these people is an expert, and maybe I should shut my mouth, but I think that needs to be demonstrated to people, because what you have here is a piece of legislation that could be so amazing, because there's so much substandard, but yeah, nervous. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals like to please come forward? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Moved by Councilor Barbell, second by Councilor Giannikas. Roll call.
Counselor Barbell?
Yes.
Counselor Kelly?
Yes.
Counselor Giannikas?
Yes.
Counselor McFarland?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Yes.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Take care.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, I thought it was very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.